see, most people don't even know it's there. That's your number, and then you'll be on your way with the schools as we proceed. So second, you're doing the FAFSA. Second is kids need to research their schools. And I want to give you a website. It's called collegedata.com. All you have to do is give them your email. It's a third-party site. I have nothing to do with them at all. But here's what you can find on this. You can do a search for a college, and you can click on their admission tab, and you can see what their average incoming student is. Then you can click on the Monies tab, the Money Matters tab, and you can see their average aid offer. So now imagine this. You know where your kid sits academically, average, above average, and you also know the average financial aid offer that you kicked out. Now this becomes very strategic because most schools do this and just accept you. Maybe they give you a little $1,000 grant and they wait to see what you do. But you know on average when they give an award, they give out $9,000. They lowball me. I have 3 secrets. Number 1, ignore the cost of attendance. The cost of attendance, known as COA, is the everything cost. It covers everything. Books, their guess on transportation, room and board, some basic student expenses. It's their cost of attendance, tuition. Ignore it. That's secret number 1. Absolutely throw out and ignore the cost of attendance. Do not make your decision based upon the Starbucks listed price of that item. You will not pay it, ever, unless you make the mistake and assume you have to. Number 2, every school, unless you are that elite student, that's how it was in my time. If you were that top athlete or the top academic kiddo, you got money from the college. See, the college didn't have all the crazy amount of federal government money that they had. They had to really play with their money quite carefully. But still the same. They still play with their endowment money very, very cautiously. And if you are a top elite kid, you may very well get a free ride right away because they want you. But typically, they will lowball you. They will say, congratulations, here's nothing. Wait till you hear a story on that one. Or here's $1,000. And now parents go, 28,000. God, we got 1,000. You got to start doing what? You got to start applying for all your local scholarships. This $500 one, $750 one, all this other stuff. That process is crazy. It's hard. Go for it. It's a full-time job. But they lowballed you, and you don't know it. And there's a strategy on how to get them to reconsider. So that's secret 2. They lowball you. And number 3, you can appeal a school. You can appeal their financial aid decision. So I mentioned the story I just said. There was a crazy story about getting nothing. I worked with a lady. She had a 0 EFC. She was divorced. She was all in on the kids. And she didn't make very much money at all. And when she put all her stuff in, she got a 0. So the federal government and the colleges see this number that this single mom can't afford $1. She was expected to pay nothing. They applied to the University of Kansas. The University of Kansas, she was a graduate from the University of Kansas. The University of Kansas knew that this was family. They've been trying to go after her for a long time, continue the tradition. They applied, got approved, and it's a $38,000 school out of state, got approved, and what they offered was a $25,000 Parent Plus loan and $5,500 in student loans. So $30,500 in total loans, and to see if she would then find a way to make up the other $8,000. But how in the world? How is that not the very definition of predatory lending? This mom is now, over 4 years, going to have a $100,000 Parent Plus loan, and she shows she can afford nothing? That's what she got? I mean, it's absurd. So she appealed it. They lowballed her for sure, and she appealed it. And I want to actually give you access to these letters. Now, they ended up not going to KU because KU only came back with a $5,000 reward. and they called it their legacy grant. Well, that should have been given the first time. That was the alumnus award. Why didn't they give this lady that $5,000, it's a $20,000 difference over 4 years, the very first time? Because they lowballed her, even though she had a 0. And they waited to see what she would do. So they ended up not choosing it because that wasn't enough. They got $14,300 from another university, and that's one they went with. So these 3 secrets: ignore the cost of attendance. Throw it out. Do not pay attention to that number. And we're going to go deeper into that. They will lowball you. Just be prepared for it. On the timing of that, I'll explain. And then 3, you can appeal. So kids, this is what's important for your kids. When it comes to researching their school, go for the schools that fit them. They can work with their counselors. They can do all kinds of research. You can use collegedata.com. Don't just throw them up and go, I tried North Dakota and Wyoming. Like, try as best you can to get very focused. You can find 6 to 10 colleges that provide a course of study that you're interested in. If you happen, and this is another key component, if you happen to know the exact course of study you want to pursue, that's even better. Because if you know, I want to be in engineering, well, guess what? There are a lot of schools that have a great engineering school, and guess what they want to do? They want to keep engineering students coming in. Nursing. I was working with this mom. They applied to 2. I'm like, no. Those are the only 2 she wants to go to. That's fine. You've got to find 6 to 10. And here's why. You must apply to 6. I can't stress that enough. And the main reason is these schools can see where you submitted your test scores. They assume you applied. If you submitted test scores to XYZ University, you most likely applied. They look. All of them do. They know their competition. If you apply to one because you got to go there and you know you'll get in,
there's no competition.
Why would they do anything for you in a market that's very competitive with a whole bunch of other kids that are competing for that same money? They know they got you. They do this. So I worked directly with the head of endowment and the head of enrollment at DU. It was a privilege. I was a little nervous about it because we were doing a joint presentation. And they sat right where you ladies are sitting. We did a presentation here, and they came here a few years back. And the lady, the head of endowment, was taking notes. And I was just convinced. Here I am talking about how to get more money from school. And I was so ready for her to stand up and go, I was like, I've never been nervous speaking, but I was. I know I've done it. It's worked. So I know what I'm saying is true. But she got up and she admitted all this is true and accurate. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. But they told me, so they're just one school, so it's just one academic crew, but they said if we see a kid that's applied to more than 10 schools, then they're just looking for the best deal. And we're not Costco. That's what she said. So, 6 to 10. The 6 gives you competition. And when you think of it like online dating, you're swiping right, one of them is going to swipe right with you. One of them is going to want to date your kid. So this mom I told you with the 0 EFC, they appealed Michigan State. Michigan State didn't even respond. Nothing. KU responded, but it was $5,000. The third school, $14,300. They wanted her. So 6 is the minimum to give you those types of options. And the more you can be focused on your course of study, the better that is, because they know their competition too. They know, hey, UNC is a great nursing school. This kid is awesome. We want this kid, right? So try to get them focused. You get them working on packaging very well. If the school says 2 recommendation letters, do not send them 4. The head of enrollment actually at DU laughed about that. She goes, you can't even follow the very first instruction we give you. Why send them 1? She goes, we literally, if someone says no recommendation letters, they're out. If they send us 4, they're out. They go through, all schools go through these by hand. There's no automated system of admittance. They sit around and they go through this by hand. So if they do 2 recommendation letters, send them 2. If they do 1, send them 1. They say you can have up to 6, send them 6. So that gets all back to the early packaging. Then we're early for the FAFSA. We got that organized. We're ready to go. We've got schools researched. We know the schools we're going for. No fewer than 6, no more than 10. Apply early, which we've mentioned. Apply to all the schools. Go through the process with them all. And so this is what happens in the fall. And this is where I created this little Gantt chart, actually, because I would hear from the moms a lot of just feeling antsy. Like, where are we in this process? They all of a sudden, we blink and they're 18 years old or 17, graduating high school. We're like, what in the world? And then this process, it goes really slow. So the fall is getting admitted. It's you doing the financial information up front, and it's you getting admitted to the school. The spring, they call it need blind. The financial aid and the admissions department do not communicate together. It's their way of ensuring that everybody's treated fairly. So they don't know. All they know is, hey, here's our pool of people that we've admitted. All right? Do the financial aid work. So in the late January to early February is when the financial aid offers start to come. So that's why you want to be in early in the fall, so that you can get some of those aid award letters early, so that you can evaluate and potentially appeal. So after the schools that your kiddo discovers, hopefully they're aggressive. And here's what I mean by that. On that website, College Data, it's just the one that I personally use. When you go to the Money Matters tab, you can see their average aid offers. Some schools just aren't that aggressive. They don't need to be. Some are very aggressive, like DU. DU is wicked aggressive. If they like you, they get you there. They want you. That's why, if your kid can get there, throw out the cost of attendance. Don't look at it. Leverage them. You have no idea what they're going to offer you. I've got kids going to DU for the teens, like 13, 14,000, that they weren't going to apply to because they thought it was 70, right? So now that we are in the process, we've applied, we researched them to find out how aggressive they are. And you can do that on that website. You can see they have their numbers on that Money Matters tab, how aggressive they are in their aid. Some would be like, hey, our average aid's like $3,000. Well, that's on a $27,000 school, it's not very aggressive. Some are like 15. Okay. So this is cool. We have these 6 to 10. We know who the aggressive ones are. We know who our student really would like to go to. And now we wait for those offers. And again, as you can imagine, they come out like this, and they wait to see what you do. And you analyze it. They gave us $1,000. On average, they give 9, and we know that. I had somebody tell me, it's like, Kelly, it's like having the cost sheet at the car dealership. I'm like, that's exactly right, it is. If you knew to the penny their cost sheet, you would be able to probably get a better deal than somebody who didn't walk it into the dealership. So knowing what they've done on average, knowing that our kid, remember, stretch student, if some of these 6 to 10 are schools that we know our kid's above average for, and again, on their admissions tab, you can find out what that is. We want the school to be reaching for us. You still go after a reach school because you never know what's going to happen. Have 1 or 2 in the mix. Don't go after 4 of them and have only 2 safety nets. So go after a couple reach schools, but also go after some schools to where you're a reach student. Because what do they do if they really want you? They can't offer you a suite. They can't offer you season tickets as the parents. They can't offer you the second best spot to, the tailgating before the game spot. The only thing they have is the money to put on the table to make it happen. That's it. And they do it. So I used to do PowerPoints and click and show and all that. I don't anymore. One of the slides I used to show, it was the student of ours, Jacob, who applied to Case Western Reserve University. And he was packaged well. He was a great student. And he got a $10,000 award, basically. And the parents initially were excited. But I asked him, I go, well, have you done your research yet? And they're like, well, no. Well, you don't know if that's a good aid offer or not. I go, let's look. So we were sitting there having coffee and pulled it up, and I'm like, they lowballed the heck out of you. It says right there on their data. You should be getting like 16. Your kid's way above average for them. They lowballed you to see, he's way above average. This kid was excellent. They absolutely lowballed. So we appealed. We sent one of these little appeal letters. It comes from the student. I will give them to you. And it's worded very well. It's just, look, I'm trying to do what's best for my family. I'm very interested in your school. I see my future there. I'm wondering if by chance, and it goes to the director, not whoever you've been working with, it goes to the director of financial aid. I'm wondering if there's just any additional resources you'd possibly consider. The second award letter came back, and I show it, and it was $21,970. $11,970 over each year. $48,000 basically that they offered because they asked. My dad taught me this lesson about asking when I was like 8. We pulled into a McDonald's in Arapahoe on I-25, and he goes, watch this. And this is when they used to have those little, they'd cook them and they'd put them under the little heat lamps, right? And he'd say, hey, do you guys by chance have any Big Macs that have been sitting there too long? And the guy kind of looked at him and, yeah, turned around. And we got like 8 Big Macs in the bag. And, they just gave them to us because they were past their, he's like, son, you always have to ask. I'm like, that's hilarious, Dad. But this is a business. College is a business. They have a product. Education. They have clients or customers that they sell that product to. The only difference is there happens to be this big entity that provides all the money to buy their product. But they are sitting on a lot. So if we've packaged our kid, if we've prepared ourselves and work early, if we've chosen schools that are very likely desire our kid, or our kids a course of study they are really interested in pursuing. And we understand in the fall or in the spring, we understand where we sit on what they offered us. And now we go, hey, would you please reconsider this? You will be shocked what happens. It's crazy. I got a call, this was 2 years ago. I used to show his kids on a screen because he had triplets. And he's been freaking out. I've known him this long. He was freaking out at the ultrasound, right? They're excited, but he's kind of like, like, oh my gosh. Sure enough, we blink, and they're seniors. So we went through all this. He and I met, and one of the kids got a free ride at DU, so thank goodness. But CSU didn't offer anything. And the 2 other kids were going to CSU. So CSU just said, congratulations, $28,000. Now, they work very hard, but they're certainly in the middle class. He doesn't have enough to spend $56,000 each year for 4 years. So he's a little freaking out because their kids were good. They're above average, they were good, but they got nothing. We sent the appeal letter. It was written from the brother and on behalf of both of them to the director of financial aid. Turns out the director of financial aid called him and said, hey, we're going to see what we can do. So I'm cooking dinner at like 7 o'clock and my phone rings and it's him. And I'm like, hey, Randall. And he calls me O'Connor. He goes, O'Connor. He's like, sorry to call you tonight. I go, no problem. He goes, dude, we just got to the mailbox. They offered $15,000 per kid. $30,000 each year for 4 years. So the free ride plus $120,000 over the course of 4 years from CSU, they then had enough. They didn't have to save $1. He's like, I actually do get to go to the football games. This is amazing. But if they did not simply ask, they would have been in the position to go, congratulations, Kimmy, you got the free ride. Susie and Johnny, we don't know what you're going to do. She's going to DU. You guys, Metro maybe, ACC. Nothing against those institutions, but when these kids have earned the opportunity for something different on a course of study that they've earned for, it's unfortunate, and it drives me crazy. So, my history, I'm a financial advisor on the insurance side. We had these conversations, as I mentioned. I'm standing in front of 175 people that first night at Peak to Peak, the #1 charter school. And I'm sitting on what I thought to be a gold mine, right? Because now I have a school promoting me. I just show up and talk. I've never spent $1 over the past 8 years of marketing myself to travel all around the state. And when I said this to the 100 and some people at Transamerica office, and I said over the course of 5 years of doing this, I've been in front of thousands of parents. I was at a gym up north of Prospect Ridge. The bleachers were full. They had 2 screens to show my screen. I'm walking around with a microphone because it was a new school. They were all freaking out. I've been in front of, a ton. And this was going back 3 years ago, this 5-year mark, I had acquired 5 clients on the financial side. And when I said that to this room of financial advisors, they looked at me, they're like, what? And I said, yeah, it was an enormous failure. I'm not a bad presenter, and I'm really good across the table. But it was a mystery. We couldn't figure it out. And we tried and we tried. But we have to be careful in front of a school because we're not here to just pitch our financial planning. We're here to teach these strategies on how to help families make it happen and get their kid to school and coach them and make it actually happen. But there are financial strategies that can be implemented, but we had to be careful of how we pitch that because, why are we the ones standing up here? The problem is when you go from college planning to financial planning, it's very similar to your plumber after leaning over and fixing your sink, getting up and going, hey, did I tell you I do taxes? You'd be like, dude, you're my plumber, right? I got a tax guy. Families would come in and go, yes, thank you, this is amazing, but we got our financial stuff already. It was this mystery. I can't explain it. So what happens in our industry, the way you bridge this gap is you become a college planner. You can go to any other school and normally it's the public schools. They're all financial advisors, insurance professionals, and they throw out the information. It's very good. They do good work for sure. They can help you even negotiate. But in order to get their assistance, you have to pay them the $2,500 to $3,000 for their college planning advice. And now if there's skin in the game, you'll listen to their financial recommendations as well. And that's how you bridge the gap. And I had countless people tell me, Kelly, hello, you need to be the college planner. And I'm like, no, I won't do it. I had a guy in Philly who was like the #1 in the country, and he was begging me to join him. He's like, Kelly, I'll split my fee. Because I had hundreds of families that I could get in the door every year. I'll split my fee, I'll do all the work, you just bring them in. I'm like, no, I won't. You're working for free. I know. Because 80% of the room couldn't afford me at $2,500 or $3,000. They're here to try to make college possible, and I'm only going to really give you the good stuff if you stroke me a check. I was fundamentally opposed to it. This guy right here, Scott, sat through a presentation years ago. He did become a client of mine. His kids were really young, and he and I were meeting one time, and he goes, Kelly, he happens to be an internet guru. He goes, Kelly, have you ever thought about putting this online? Like teaching families how to do this. I said, that's brilliant. I love it. So what I did is I created College Money Academy. And I broke how to do this in great detail into different modules and a bunch of short consumable videos. So student prep, I go into detail on that. Researching schools, I go into detail on that. And that's what College Money Academy is. It's collegemoneyacademy.com. So I stopped speaking across the state. This is the only school I speak. I work with and I offer myself to parents here. I give my stuff away. I will give you the appeal letters. And just ask you email me. I will give you the appeal letters when it's time to use them. I will help you. Giddy has called me a couple times. I was having dinner with my son on Friday nights as we were hanging out. And it's noisy. I'm like, sorry, it's noisy, but she had some questions for me. I love this stuff because I have a goal. Steve Jobs has the best goal ever said. He wanted to flick the universe. I think that's just crazy cool. I want to flick the college system because I would love it if every school had every parent going, oh, not good enough. I mean, something would change. I'd be out of business, but that's okay. Something would have to change. So I want to flick the system by creating awareness. So there literally isn't anything in this for me. And that's totally okay because this fundamentally runs through what I'm trying to do slowly over time by being interviewed and doing podcasts and doing other things, is bringing awareness that it isn't broken. And because it's not broken, we can then enter into the business system of it and actually make it work for us because it works perfect. It absolutely works perfect. And once we understand the business side of this, if we've been early, prepared, researched, leveraged, packaged, it happens. Literally almost every single time. Because it's just business. So that's what's in it for me, is nothing except I love bringing awareness to this, and it's slowly happening. I have families all over the country that have come into College Money Academy that are learning it that I can't get to, and I love that. It's fantastic. You don't really need to. You can go look, you can see my webinar and all that if you want, but you're going to get a lot of what you've heard tonight. But I do offer myself to work with you and help you, and I would love to be at Pegasus and Castle Rock and see you doing this. And you're like, dude, you saved me $20,000 a year. He was a parent right here at Skyview. That was really cool. I'm sitting with my wife. I'm like, see, working for free is pretty cool, isn't it? It's good. I have my business. I do fine with my business. This is, anyway. So where are we? Oh, okay. Okay, so when it comes down to notes, FAFSA, get on it. Do not provide more information than requested. If they don't ask for business assets, don't give them business assets. I had somebody do that one time. They were like, well, they asked for my total assets. Nope, personal. Your business is a separate entity, right? Whatever they ask for, be very focused, be very specific, and put that in. Because what did that do when he put his hundreds of thousands of dollars of business capital in? It inflated his EFC, right? So don't do that. So just be cautious. If you are divorced dealing with custody things, talk to me after. There are some very specific strategies with that. I don't need to go into them now, but they can be very strategic. So the FAFSA, get it done early so you're in the system. And research the schools, preferably based around a course of study. 6 to 10, no fewer than 6, no more than 10. Understand that they see their competition and they look. DU looks. It's one of the first things they look at. If they see more than 10, you're off the table. They look at it right away. So that's just critical. And I had my daughter, she didn't want to do that. And she's like, Dad, isn't this my future? I was like, honey, yes. And your future doesn't involve a whole bunch of debt or me having to live with you, when I'm 60. So this is your future, but we're going to leverage. So there are a couple schools that we just put in the system. She had no desire to go to, but we were just going to use them as part of that competition. And then know that come the second time, because you're early, you're going to be one of the first ones to get the 8 offers. And then you've already done your research so you know if they lowballed you or not. If their average is 4 and they gave you 8, don't appeal them. They gave you a great offer, right? If they lowballed you, appeal it. I'll get you the letters. They're very simple. All you do is just send it off to the Director of Financial Aid and you wait. You wait to see what they do. But if you have 6 to 10 options, one of them, at a minimum, is going to do something. So I had a family. They were divorced. They were 50-50 custody. They thought it would be best to put the husband on. He happened to make quite a bit more money because they thought it would look better, right? But they didn't understand what funnels out of that FAFSA is the EFC, which made it actually worse for them. So I said, no, switch that up. We got to switch that real quick. So we put the ex-wife on. We didn't have to have him on in this particular instance, which put them in a much lower EFC in a need position. Then we went through the process. Then we appealed, and it came back. It was like a $33,000 school, and I got this text. I used to show it. I got this text. She goes, you mean my outflow is only $9,800? I'm like, yes. So I got a $33,000 school for $9,800. So it happens. So the student's part is take the job of high school serious. Everything you do is stacking. Everything you do outside. If you have a job, do the best you can at that job, because if that's a really potential recommendation letter, my daughter was really into volunteering her time. She at youth group and a different thing. She went to Haiti a whole bunch. That added a ton of hours. She led the middle school in music, so all that added up. She's like, Dad, am I kind of leveraging that? I'm like, yes. Leverage everything. Another client of mine, their daughter had a stroke at birth, so she has some brain issues. And she's a reader. The girl reads and learns like crazy. The librarian loves her and her quest for knowledge. They're like, is that our recommendation letter? Yes. Sure enough, they got a great deal at UNC, just up north here. Because they leveraged everything. I had a kid that was, the mom and dad decided to abort her and change their mind on the table. And it was a very moving story. And they asked, like, she asked me, she's like, should I leverage that? I mean, this is part of my story on, and I'm like, yes, leverage everything you can. Of course, you were not supposed to be here. You're an amazing human being, and you're continuing your story. So you are competing in every way possible. Stack yourself. Because once that time comes, you're going to have 80% of the kids who are just like, I'm going to go to CSU, I think. Mom and dad got the money. 80% of the kids just kind of wander through. You know, I know a student that dropped out after her sophomore year. This was just now. This would have been the start of her junior year. And she's pursuing her GED. She passed the GED in 3 months. And she discovered that one of the tests she took, like 73% of graduating seniors can't pass. It's like, what? So that is your competition. And that's why this works if you catch it early, or if you pick it up when you're a junior or senior and you start to take it seriously. We can't repackage a senior. Their package is kind of done, right? Any questions?
Do the students themselves have to fill out FAFSA too?
Yes.
They do?
Yep.
As like a separate account?
Yep, they'll have their own account. Yep, their income and their assets are included in that.
Can you talk about the benefit of early decision in terms of like finances and?
Yeah, early decision doesn't really, to my knowledge, affect the money component because the financial aid department still hasn't gotten really too much into the mix. But if they happen to do an early decision on financial aid also, well, hey, take advantage of it. That's just going to be a per school thing. But I don't, to my knowledge, and I could totally be wrong, I don't know if the early decision is always going to include a full financial aid analysis or not. Might just be an early decision on, I mean, did you just have one where they're like, hey, congratulations, fill out your form, commit, and do all this, and here's your, something like that, or they're trying to get you
They
in?
didn't give you a financial package.
Yeah.
They just told
Yeah,
you
so,
to
you know,
enroll.
the early you can be great, right? But know that you want to wait for the financial aid from them. You want to wait for the award.
There you go.
By the way, the award letter, she took a picture of it that the lady got that has a 0 EFC and 25 in Parent Plus loans, 5,500 in student loans. It said congratulations on the top.
Wow.
Yeah, it did. Your financial aid award, congratulations. Like, oh my gosh, that's just, yeah.
Wow.
Sorry.
I've got a few, so keep coming back to me. I don't want to take everyone's time. Number one is best leveraging schools. Do you have advice for a certain college? If this is your college, do you have advice for best other 6 to 7, 8 colleges to go to leverage you better for the college that you want?
Great question. I think first, if that happens to be due to a course of study like architecture, then that would just come down to research of other schools that, you know, and that's where often, you know, sometimes hopefully there's some resources. Google is obviously amazing, you know, top architecture schools, right? So if it happens to be due to a course of study, then that it is that much easier. And, you know, what if there's one in New Jersey? And you're like, we ain't going to New Jersey. So what? They're one of the top 15 schools for architecture. Try it, right? So what I often find is kids have a hard time coming up with 6 to 10. They really do. There's normally 2 or 3. But we've got to push and open up that envelope a little bit. So if you can find through the course of study, regardless of where they are, right, go for it, leverage them, use them. If you can happen to pick schools that not only have that course study, but also the kid's interested in, I mean, that's just a bonus, right? Because it might be the one that happens. You know, it might be the one that just says absolutely belly up, and you're like, oh gosh, we didn't see that coming. Well, it looks like you're going to New Jersey, right? So, but if you can't, then at the very minimum, throw some in. Now, if there isn't a course of study, if it's just like, I don't know, I don't know what I really want to do. It's just going to be harder, right? But typically region, is kind of a mark. Like, Grand Canyon knows who they're competing against. CSU, UNC, KU, we're all the WUI schools, that we're all kind of here in this little Midwest system. So if there isn't a particular desire or course of study, then you just kind of got to wing it a little bit. But the course of study desire just happens to spark a little bit more of, we know our architecture, this kid's pursuing architecture, and they've applied to good architecture schools, right? They know that information too.
And so if you do know the course of study, would you advise them applying, say, for instance, our daughter has her 6 schools that she wants to go to, if we should add a couple more, should they be more reach schools, like really prestigious?
Sure, if you don't have any, if you haven't done any.
I think she has one. I think Skyview advises one reach, one.
Yeah, I'll always go for a reach if it's possible.
Yeah. But would it benefit them more to apply to more reach schools to look more competitive for the school that they really want to go to?
Potentially, and that's just going to come down to the school. If you're really, if these 6, oh my gosh, and you're really struggling, maybe go throw a couple more reaches. And when you have 10, you can throw in 2 more reaches and 2 more random ones, right, if you choose. If you don't have to do 10, just make sure you don't do fewer than 6. Yeah.
Interesting comment about the community service. What composes of that? Is choir or theater community service, that kind of stuff?
You mean like choir from the school?
Yeah.
Choir from the church, I would believe would qualify.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure. That is going to depend upon the district, right? What they can get signed off.
So it doesn't need to be signed off, right?
Yeah.
It's usually a third party
Yeah.
that you volunteer your free time serving.
Yeah. You got more?
Yeah, enrollment in different colleges. Do you see that enrollment's dropping across the nation? Is it average? Is it higher? And the reason to ask that question is, would you suggest that for someone to go after a college where their enrollment is dropping? Because possibly they have this much money to give away and the enrollment's dropping. But then again, they could be losing money. You might start cutting out some of these programs, so you might actually want to go after a college that has an enrollment rising. So I need your advice on that.
Right, it's just a game, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the colleges have what's called a yield rate. That's what in the sales world we call our closing ratio. So the yield rate is how many they admitted compared to how many enrolled. And the average ranges between like 19 and 30%. I know an average is a number, but that's the range. It's kind of the average range is a 19 to 30% yield rate. So if their yield rate starts to plummet, they don't have butts in seats, and that's a problem. So for sure. How you track that, I don't know. On the college data, the site I use, I can't go back to see what the yield rate was. What was the historical 10-year yield rate for them? I don't know where to find that particular information. But if they have a bad yield rate, or on a lower, if they're on the 19 side, you might have a really good chance if they're like, ooh, this is a great kid. That's the reach student concept. You bet they very well could be bellying up. If you'll see that though, or you'll see something different with like say Mesa. They know that they're kind of a safety net fallback, right? They know the applications come. So they're not that aggressive, and they have actually a pretty high yield rate because kids that are applying there are like, yeah, this is where we're going, right? So they don't really need to be aggressive. They know they're getting their 15,000 applicants and whatever. So it's this little, it's hard to give you a definitive answer other than that's why we want to have multiple options. And if we know these numbers, that's just other things that we can be aware if we're going to be appealing them or not, right?
It's an evil business.
It is.
I'm glad you didn't say exactly that way, but the whole FAFSA, the first time I did it for our oldest, I just said this is all a scam. They're really setting themselves up for success and
without a doubt.
And what I say all the time is college is a business, especially when you start talking about athletes who are ripped off.
Yes,
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. So to touch on that, make sure to do the FAFSA. Because I have parents go, well, why even do it then? Well, that guarantees you pay full price. So I've had people that make $2 million a year. I'm like, you're filling out the FAFSA because you're in the system and you can negotiate and you can say I have the money But I'm not sending them there unless you do something different. My kid's good. I've seen it. I've seen people that, you know, this myth, and it drives me crazy. I used to do 13 myths, but then I could sit here and talk for 3 hours. There's so many myths. One of the myths is if you make too much money, you're not going to get anything. Don't even apply. That just drives me nuts. And financial advisors tell their clients this. They say, look, you just happen to make too much money. Don't even worry about going through the process. You're not going to get anything. And it is completely false. That guarantees you pay full price. So in order to really be negotiating with the school, you got to have your information in there regardless of what your EFC looks like. So, yep, do the EFC, and then you can play the game. But it is a perfectly designed tool to create a whole bunch of banking money that they can collect interest on that you can't ever get rid of. And it works great. And why? You know, these colleges are this and that, but why would they? We wouldn't do any different. If I had a product that you got, if you had to buy College Money Academy, and I knew the government was going to give you the money to do it, it'd cost you $10,000. You know, I mean, it makes sense on why it happens. But they still have their money. They just very rarely put it on the table the first time. Why should they when they can wait to see what you do? Right? It's just, so, I mean, I get a lot of people that sometimes sit here and do this with me and cross their arms, and I know that once we kind of get into it, but my goal isn't to be everything financial or everything college planning with you. It's to get you encouraged and motivated that it can actually happen. You know, this idea that's been floating around like crazy, certainly now, is college worth it anymore? No, I don't think KU's worth $38,000 a year. That's where I went to school. I was in the liberal arts department. I got a minor in communications. Did I get a $160,000 education? My senior year, I'm taking a gemology class. You know, my final was I had to pretend to go to the jewelry store and buy an engagement diamond, right, and report on it. You know, I'm 21 years old, thinking, yeah, I'm getting married. You know, $160,000 for this? No, absolutely not. Now, did I get a $25,000 education? Yeah, I believe that I did. So that's what I try to do. My whole, typically we can get, you know, over half off. So if we can get to a school for a year and a half worth of expense, yes, I personally feel then the maturity of what college brings about and the education is important. But no, if all of these schools are the Starbucks price tag and going forward, I'm struggling with that myself, right? So I was screwed for a long time having 4 kids. My one daughter dropped out after a year and a half, and I had a hard time with that because I got a $3,800 price tag at CSU. I'm like, girl, I can get your education for under $16,000, like 4-year education. Like, come on. But she is running a YWAM, a Youth with a Mission, out in Redding, California. She heads the whole thing. She's loving it, and she travels to the Middle East. She works with Muslim women, and she loves it. She loves what she's doing. My 19-year-old, he's a total techie. He's like, Dad, I don't need to go to school. And I trust him. I mean, he's really smart. He's working. He's a total entrepreneur. He's going to own the place that his buddies rent from when they get out of school with Dad, right? My third, I doubt it's going to go. And then who knows what my fourth's going to do. But so I mean, I know, right? That's crazy. And then my stepson's at UCCS, and I couldn't for the life of me get that kid to apply to more than just 2 schools. I'm like, dude, you know I do this, right? I'm like, dude, whatever, right? I mean, I'm just a stepdad. But I did when I first did this, $3,800, man. That was my outflow for CSU. So it makes that a lot easier. Okay, so you said 3, you only gave me 2.
Well, I wrote down a 5th one. I don't know how much time you have. You can shut it down whenever you're ready. The appeal letters. Do you have advice? Do you just send it in? Do you email follow-up? Do you call? Do you show up? Are there different options there? Or do you just mail?
That's fabulous, and I laugh because I got a fun story about that I did. So let me give you my email real quick. If you guys email me, just said, hey, I was at your Skyview, I'll email you the appeal letters. My email is Kelly, Kelly, at collegemoneyacademy.com. Real quick.
Kelly, just before you answer that question, I just want to let you know if you need to leave, please feel free to go ahead and do that. I know we said we would end at 7, so you're welcome.
Shocker, I went long.
Go figure.
Kelly, Kelly, at collegemoneyacademy.com. Feel free to email me questions if you have to go.
Thank you.
My email or my cell phone will be in there. You can call me. All right? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so. Well, I'll okay, 303. I'll give it to you. Yeah, but you're good. 303-815-3552. So I'll answer that appeal letter question. You said something in there really interesting. Should we swing by? I got a really great story. I've got a really great story about that. So the appeal letters, you just research the director of financial aid, and it comes from the student. The relationship is not between you and the school. It is between you and the student. You want the student to do as much of this as possible. You certainly can call in. They're good with that. But you don't want to be the major helicopter parent because that's a pain to them, literally. So the student is the one pursuing their future, right? So it's to the director of financial aid, and there's two letters. There's with special circumstance and without. And they're basically the same, except one has, it kind of ties into where there's a special circumstance, like we're triplets, right? That's a special circumstance. I know, right? So you do? All right.
You're in luck.
I know. Leverage it, for sure. Yeah, please. So, it's a great letter in of itself. You can tweak it whatever you want. I mean, I'd recommend you kind of follow the design of it. But then, yes, you can just mail it to the director of financial aid. Now, you said something about a visit. I had a dad, when they toured the college, he went in with 3 $5 Starbucks cards into the financial aid department. And it just said, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so, because that was one name that was on a correspondence they received. And this lady came out. Let's call her Kim. I don't know what her name was. But he said, hey, Kim, I'm so-and-so. And you don't know me, but you mailed some stuff for my daughter. And we're touring. And we just wanted to thank you very much for what you do. We know this is a crazy time, and coffee's on us. And he said the lady just was shocked. Nobody on tours comes to visit the financial aid people, right? They might step into the front office, but they don't ask for their reps and all that. And it worked. It just worked. I don't remember the exact result, but he texted me and was like, you should have seen the look on this girl's face. So all the correspondence, they had an advocate. So I always recommend, if you tour a school, go into the financial aid department, ask for not just the lady behind the counter, just go, look, I'd like to meet a couple of your reps, because you're getting bombarded with questions, and I'm going to have a ton of them, and I would just like to have an advocate on my side that I at least want to meet. As a matter of fact, I'd like to buy you coffee first. Here's a $5 Starbucks. Whatever. Try it. Human interaction and respect and courtesy goes much farther than most people give credit for. And when they do all this by hand, so a visit is great. The way I leveraged a visit for my daughter was CSU asked for some additional information from her. And I said, take it to Bailey. That was the girl's name. I said, drive out there and take it to Bailey. She's like, Dad, she was out in Parker. She was like, really? I said, yes, drive it to Bailey. She goes, but I can submit it online. Matt, third time, drive it to Bailey. Her name's Madison. I call her Matt, drive it to Bailey. Okay. So she drove up there and walked in, and Bailey's jaw dropped. So she walked in and just said, hey, Bailey, I'm Madison O'Connor. Thanks for helping. And I thought instead of just submit it, I just like to meet you face to face and hand this to you. Here's the information you requested. Same response. She's like, oh my gosh. She goes, and this is what she said. I've been in this position for 3 years, and not one student has ever visited me. Thank you. Well, I don't think it's any crazy thing that we got over 14, almost 15 grand from CSU for my daughter. You don't know. I can't apply that specifically, but if it's possible, do it. All your kid's doing is advocating for themselves. That's it. To other people who have the ability to pull that lever. It's not an automated system process. It's a human process. So which kid's advocating for themselves and which isn't? If it's possible, I absolutely would visit. You mail in the letter. You could maybe hand deliver the letter. I don't know. I wouldn't. I would mail it to the director of financial aid. Don't email it. Make them open it. Yes, sir.
Well, I just got a funny story on that if you got a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so from a military family, not a lot of money, moving around, First time we settle in, Mom goes to the grocery store, takes the butcher cupcakes. Hi, we just moved in, da-da-da-da-da. We ate well. It was just awesome. I mean, she had that right on. It was just, yeah, hey, love what you're doing.
It's crazy. Starbucks cards are like gold.
Yeah.
It's funny. You're just getting somebody a cup of coffee. But yeah, I recommend you leverage everything you can. Don't take it for granted. So I made her drive up there, and she had some fun afternoon with her friend, and blew Bailey's mind, and she had never been visited before until my sweet daughter's standing in front of her. Another one?
All right, I'll switch to 4 and 5. It's funny how we take the SAT early, and then we finish our senior year, and we learn things we could have used on that SAT, which is probably why a kid, you mentioned ACT had a 24, got into the school that was a 25. How often does that happen? Our daughter's like 3 points short on math. She's taking the SAT again this weekend, but how often do they allow kids with a lower score than admission to get in?
Well, it wasn't required to have a 25 to get in. That was the incoming freshman average.
Okay.
So when I was doing the research, I knew what the average was, and she was 1 point below the average. But it wasn't a requirement for admission. But that was more from my investigating of when the money comes, I want to know if my kid's an average or a reach student for them, right? So the SAT and ACT, I'll get your question. Let me answer. Let me just mention this one. Take it as many times as you can. They take your best score.
How many times is too many though? Like, do
They take your best score.
Yeah, so they don't look at it and say, this kid took it
Nope.
like 8 times.
No, they look at it and go, this kid took it 8 times compared to this one who took it once and didn't get that great of a score.
Right.
I mean, again, look at what it. Imagine that if that's a youngster applying to work with you in an internship, and they show this effort to do everything they can to be good, and supposed to some kids like, oh, I do whatever, I took it once. Like that, I'm going over to this route. This person's into, doing well. So I see so many times kids that just go, oh, I got a 20. Okay, when are you scheduled again? Are you happy with that? Was that a great score for you? If it's a great score for you, good. If you think you can do better, are you scheduled again to do it again? No. Or I did it late. Why? Come on. So yes, if I'm working with the family, I'm like, you gotta do those, because you can take them as many times as you want, and they will take the best score, even after you've submitted. So we have seniors that are scheduled to still be doing it because, whatever. If you go, hey, I got 26, they'll take the 26.
So if you apply to a college and you submit your score that you had on your most recent test or your best score, or they have access to it, do you say in there somewhere that I'm going to be taking it again? Or
That's just up to the school if they give you the ability. But I mean, you certainly can reach out to them, and there's always names attached. You can certainly reach out to Bradley Johnson and be like, Mr. Johnson, thank you. I just to let you know I'm retaking. Any advocating this kid can do on their own goes a very long way.
So then when they get their new score, it'll be automatically sent to the school? They'll get like a notification?
Yeah, that just depends on how all that is being submitted, and that I don't have all the detailed knowledge on that, on what the student actually has to do to get it to them,
Right.
but you can get it to them.
Okay.
Post-grad certainly might have, that might be something super easy to do, but yes, take as many times as you want.
The SAT and ACT, what is the difference? Because I thought that ACT should help more for the scholarships in the college than the SAT.
My recommendation is whichever one you think you'll do absolute best on.
Because it's similar, right?
Yeah, they're pretty similar. I mean, I would just choose the one that because most schools don't require one or the other. Like, but like if you take the SAT, you can apply to CSU. If you take the ACT, you can apply to CSU, right? So if you're going to some elite schools, they want to see multiple tests. But for the most part, you don't really need to. So I would first take them both. Your kid might be more geared toward the ACT than just kick butt and blow up the ACT.
So it's better to check the college and see if they require.
Yes, for sure. And you can do that on College Data. CollegeData.com will give you that information.
Thank you.
And most of them do accept both, right? The majority.
Yes, most of them will accept both.
Yeah.
They'll accept either or,
Right.
whatever. So yeah. Well, I know some had to leave, but I hope this was helpful and unique.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
What's that?
There's always a system.
There's always a system, is right.
And somebody shows it.
And you know, I tell you what, when I've sat in front of enough people, you know, what do we want for our kids? We don't want to give them stones, for crying out loud. You know, and when the opportunity is sitting there, and I will often have parents come to me afterwards, and those are the worst, when it's like,
Yeah.
you know, not on them, just on the overall education. I want to go, where are your planners? Where's this? Where's this? How come this information isn't understood? Because there have been some real bummer things that have happened because they just didn't know.
It's all about our videographer.
It's all about the videographer.
Remember that guy?
Oh, our videographer, yeah, that's right. So when we first shot our first rendition of College Money Academy, we had a professional videographer do it. We're all set up, and he had an assistant. And this kid, he looked like he was like 23. I did the welcome video first, so it was just this basic introduction. And I stopped. The guy goes, cut. And I don't want to say what the kid said, but he went like, son of a blank, right? Real loud. We're like, what? He's like, I just graduated from CU and I have like $80,000 in debt. And I go, well, I hate to tell you, but I could have got you down to about 20.
Yeah.
But it's true. I worked with this lady. She went to a California state school, $124,000 in debt. The only job she can really find is a nanny. You know, she's mortgaged. It's horrible.